Oh shit.
Oh shit.
So formal now, man.
I know. No.
Look how formal it says. Please let us know by sending dick pics to Dustin. That is so formal.
That is about as
Well,
professional as you can get.
It better be in a tuxedo too.
yeah. Just the tie. I just want the tie
Dixedo.
around the neck.
He said a Dixiedo. You're an idiot.
You're an idiot. Oh, that's a good fucking way to start.
I swear, hanging out with Dustin, man, I say that shit at least 3 or 4 times a day, man. At least 3 or 4 times. You're an idiot. I think I just said that shit probably about a half hour ago. You're an idiot.
That's okay. I know what you mean. You mean you love me.
Man, I've known this guy for like 20 years. So
Longer than
Oh
that.
man, so you've got about a private stock of idiots that you probably call them over all them 20 years. That's a long time.
Man.
20 years? Mike, we've known each other for longer than that, man. Probably 25 or more.
Yeah, probably. That was a lot of math really fast. I
like
punted on the
40
math.
now.
Back when Mike had all his bones,
Back
all was right with the world.
Hey, you know what? I'm not missing any bones. My bones are still there. All right.
He's got more. He's got almost 300 because they're all
my soft tissue damage. Every time I fall, I got soft tissue damage. I just lay there and scream.
Oh my God.
Dude, it's got 300 bones on Earth.
All right, man. So Dennis, last time we talked, you talked about your background. You're an educator. You teach, and I want to talk to you about that a little bit, man. Because I got 5 kids, and we're doing homeschooling and working and trying to figure that all out. So
yeah, man.
I'm trying to figure where after coronavirus and what all that is. Where do you think this is going? Because I mean,
welcome back to the show. Let's hop right into this shit.
Yeah,
I like it though, man. I mean, I enjoy getting into the meat and potatoes, man, and not digging around the side dishes.
Well, here, side dish. I'm going beer tonight, I think, fellas.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you bluffed. Because you know what? I felt so bad when I was getting my drink. I'm like, I'm going to drink a beer. I'm like, no, they had their stuff in a fancy glass last time. And everything. I'm like, let me drink something fancy. I'll go grab a beer right now.
I Blue Moon the other day.
Listen. It's called rocks glass. I have to have a little glass.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You know, I usually don't stop to buy beer on the way home from work until this election thing, and I was like, man, I need a drink.
Oh my gosh! All right.
Katie asked us to try Blue Moon. She's been bugging me to get Blue Moon, but she wants to.
What's good? I mean, it is what it is. You know, it's not like, oh my god, Blue Moon.
He does that every time he opens one. Oh my god, it's Blue Moon. Oh my gosh.
Then I go filling the bottle. You guys give me some time. I'll be right back.
Well, I went part 2. Since we went part 2, I just grabbed the same thing that I had last time. Just continue the conversation, continue the drink.
Oh, I mean,
yeah. Mine didn't make it through the weekend. That bottle's gone, man.
Oh my gosh.
That shit back on.
Tonight we got Red Stag. We went Old Reliable.
I'm going to go Jim Beam as well. Although, I don't know. Let's see. Dude, you can drink like a quadruple shot of Jim Beam and Coke, or Red Stag and Coke, and it's like, that's so good. It's so fucking good.
Code Red Mountain Dew.
No, I don't believe in that.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Original.
There's no other flavor Mountain Dew but the green one.
Oh, no. I'm talking Code Red with Red Stag, man. It's dangerous. It tastes like candy.
Dead to me. Code Red does not exist.
She said you're dead to me. You know, that's a little extreme that you go from 20 years of friendship to you're dead to me in literally a 5-minute span. Fuck, man.
That's how we've been friends for so long.
Yeah, it's very limited communication. That's the key. That's the fucking key. It's let's avoid talking about this as much as possible.
Oh my gosh.
We probably said one happy birthday to each other in the last 10 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's the thought that counts, and if you ain't thinking about me, I guess you love me. There you go. Good shit.
All right, man. So back to the question at hand. Go ahead, Mikhail.
So here's the thing. A lot of universities in schools, I mean, of course not inner city schools, but a lot of university schools are actually pushing towards more online-based programs anyway. A lot of PhD programs do it. A lot of EDD programs do it. So I think that somehow this whole thing happening is kind of going to end up expanding. I mean, I can't speak for everywhere, But it just, with the way that technology is and how ingrained it is with us, our kids, whatever the case may be, um, it's becoming a stable society. We're literally in a technological age. So I think eventually it'll push to online. I think that they'll start cutting out, having people on ground, even though that's where, a lot of universities do make their money because you got tuition and then, meal plans and housing. And, that's how universities get their money. But I mean, you can reach a wider base too if you do go online. You can, have people all over the world enrolling in schools. So I think that they'll eventually push to online. But for elementary students or middle school and high school, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, man. I mean, how is it for you with 5 kids that are going through school at home? I mean, how does that work for you?
Well, I mean, my kids, I don't know what that is, dude. I think it's just a feed. I don't know. It's not my headphones. Last time I changed, I unplugged the mic. I took off the headphones. I almost took my shirt off. I don't know. I was desperate, man. Desperate times. But
calls for man.
so, moves. The moves.
Let me stop you real quick, Mike. First off, Professor, where the hell do you get off charging us full price for college for online classes?
So first off, from the professor standpoint, I get paid a contract. I'm not charging anybody personally. No, in order to join my class, I'm charging you personally to my personal bank account.
Swipe my debit card through your Square device.
You want
Leave
chapter
the money
2?
in the box on the front
Here's
step.
chapter 2, bitch. It's $39.99.
But you know what's funny is even though it seems like it's less work because you're not actually on ground, it's actually more work on both sides. A lot of people will tell you that online programs are more difficult online than they are going into an actual classroom. And to be honest with you, I prefer to be in a classroom.
Yeah,
I don't like the idea of doing online things.
well, I think a lot of teachers prefer it anyway because you get the like what Kate just said about the social interaction and education. It absolutely. I think you get a better education in person. That being said, there's a lot of universities, and I would go out on a limb and say 90% of universities are still charging the same tuition for no in-person classes, which I think a lot of people are having really serious issues with right now.
Well, the funny thing is, at least for Morgan, they actually cut down on the price to help students. And they're doing a lot of other things. I won't go into specifics, but they're doing a lot of other things to ensure that students that are having a hard time covering those bills because they're not living on campus, their financial aid may have been scaled back, they may not be receiving as many government grants, or whatever the case may be, to ensure that students are able to continue matriculating through, even with everything going on. Now, post-COVID, we honestly don't know when that's going to be. I mean, they're saying that this stuff can, the residuals of this can affect us into maybe 2022. I personally don't know. I'm not Dr. Fauci. I'm not a doctor. I don't know what the hell's going on and what their kind of process is and where they're at with it. But
well, I mean, I had heard that if Biden wins the election, that COVID's going to disappear. So that's what I'm banking on.
Hey, I haven't heard nothing about COVID since Tuesday. So it's fucking gone as far as I'm concerned.
Oh my gosh.
I walk around just coughing into people's faces. I'm like, we back, baby. Coughing at them.
Well, the worst part about it is I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning feeling this whiskey and I'm going to be like, shit, I have COVID.
Oh my God. Just stay in the house, lock all the doors, close the windows.
That's because we covered that shit like a couple episodes back where you got that situation going on, your face situation.
Yeah, staph infection from your mask, that ridiculous shit.
Oh my gosh.
So back to the school thing, what you mentioned is, middle school and elementary school. It's where my kids are at. I don't know, man. That's like what Kate said, the social interaction thing, I think is the most important thing about the education. So you're talking 2022. What are we looking at for 2 years with our kids on a screen?
So what's funny is even parents who homeschool kids, I don't know how it's going to be post-COVID because this is something new. I don't think that anybody is going to have the outlook or know really what's going to happen until it happens. Unless you're on the inside and you know something that we don't know. But
no, Anita.
But here's the thing. People that homeschool their kids, they actually have a network where they bring the kids together to interact with each other. Like they have like this, I don't know, maybe it's an app or some way for parents in the area that homeschool to bring their kids together to interact. But it's still not the same. And that's why I'm saying even teachers that I know, like that I've spoken to, don't like the idea of online. It's just not the same. And we talked about that kind of last week when we discussed the interactions with texting and like talking to people and things being interpreted a certain way or being able to keep people's attention when you're discussing. And it's a lot harder to do that when you're sitting in front of a screen and you're not in the space to learn. Because even for me, when I'm at home and I'm doing my work, it's not the same as me being in my office doing my work.
Yeah.
And kids probably feel the same way. You're at home, you got all the things that you need to distract you. You're sitting on the internet staring at a computer and you're expecting them not to be completely engaged for 2 hours or an hour, whatever the case may be, which we all know kids got short attention spans.
My daughter does it all day.
Say it again?
My daughter sits on Zoom all day.
She's in classes all day?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean, that type of interaction where you're sitting in front of a computer and you're not able to do anything besides literally sit at the screen and listen to somebody talk. First of all, it gets boring. Even for me, it gets monotonous. I mean, you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again for hours, and it's you can't expect to engage kids on that level and expect them to understand how important it is.
Yeah.
And the way that I teach, when I teach my class, I don't teach from a pop quiz test. I don't give tests or quizzes. And I do that on purpose. But it's going to be hard to gauge what these students know if I'm not really able to sit in class with them and have a full discussion the way that I'm used to doing, or I'm able to show them films and sit down and break it down with them to see what they do know and what they don't. You kind of go off the strength like, okay, watch this and do this assignment and hope that they get it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, what do you do in order to make adjustments? Because everything that I do is literally through a computer screen.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. This is a hard time for everybody. I mean, most importantly, the kids. I mean, I know it's hard for parents too, but I mean, imagine we knew it was coming. Imagine the kids who didn't know that they were going back to school or don't have the resources that others do in order to, function, or that use school to get away from all the things that are going on in the home.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting point. You talk to kids who are, say, like 18 now, 18, 19, or, something like to that effect. Let's say 25-year-olds, somewhere in there, where you're like, where 9/11 happened and you were a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look back at it. And it's like, all I really remember is my parents pulling me out of school, or I just remember like everyone really upset or whatever. But you don't really realize what's going on in the world, especially at that point in time. And I think that kids who are of, that 6 or 7 or 8-year-old, somewhere in there, even right now, are gonna be like, they're gonna look back at this when they're 18 and be like, yeah, that was that year that we had to do everything online because of whatever that thing was back then of COVID. And I think it's really interesting to expect a child to understand that, now your school is here. This is now, but maybe next year it'll go back to normal. So it's as parent. And again, I'm not a parent, so I'm not about to try to be like, oh, I know what you're going through, Mike. I couldn't possibly do what you do. Nor, what I mean? Like, that's amazing. Like, but it's hard for parents because they're used to, not just, parents need a break too. They're used to having a break and sending their kids to school. And, it's also equally difficult for the children, I think, is kind of the point I'm trying to make. It's just kind of difficult all the way around.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't be more right. And a couple of that, like the COVID thing in March, George Floyd happened, the protests, the civil unrest, all the build up to the stupid ass election.
And now
the kids just seeing this shit on TV, or a couple of my kids are on social media now, and they're seeing all the stupid shit come across and starting to get their own opinions. It's just like, dude, this year has fucked some people up.
Yeah, it's not happening here in Colorado, but Mike, you're in Michigan. There is, I've heard that there is some protests and stuff near the ballot counting areas about people, saying stop the count, and other people are saying, keep counting and all this stuff. I mean,
what's funny about that, man? I was on Facebook this morning, and I was scrolling through, and one of our friends posted something. It was like, now all the All Lives Matter people want every vote to count. And then the next post down, it was another person we know that was like, oh, now all the BLM people want every vote to count. I'm like, what? You people are ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it's so crazy that something as simple as, as democracy, and it sounds like, okay, it's not simple. Obviously, it's not simple in the United States, but it really is simple. You want something, you vote for it. You count the votes, the majority wins. It's pretty fucking simple when you break it down that way. And it's like, it seems so complicated. And the real killer thing is that, man, after this is done, when all this is said and done with, like when we're like, okay, Trump won somehow, now they're going to do a recount. So this shit ain't over. Like once they're done, they're not done. They got to do it again. Everyone's going to recount. So if these states are already recounting, I mean, to me, that's just foolish to not even start recounting. There are some places where, Trump or Biden are up only by a few thousand votes. I mean, it's like, they're going to be a recount.
And I don't have a problem with that. I don't think that there's an issue if you want people to recount based on how close it is. It's just the way that everything is being handled. That is like mind-boggling to me. Like I've had CNN on constantly, just kind of trying to keep updated with everything that's going on, and watching the different interviews that both candidates are giving. And I mean, I'm just like, it just bewilders me how you can minimize the process, knowing that this is things these are policies that have been in place forever. Of course, it's magnified now because a lot more people voted this time around than ever. And then B, with this whole COVID process, you have a lot more people that decided, I'm not going to go to the polls and stand there all day, to wait in line and then have to stand around people, whatever the case would be. They did the mail-in ballot, ballot process. So, even through all that, instead of understanding what it's going to be, knowing what was going to happen when you came in, it's this fuss about things being wrong. If you want them to recount, just ask them to recount. You know what I mean? Why are we going through this whole fuss of you making this a big deal when you knew it was coming?
Exactly. Right. You've been talking about it for weeks. It's going to be a fraud. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. So,
well, you literally told your supporters
You're not making news when you say we're going to count the votes and we're suing. You're not making news. We fucking knew you were going to do that to begin with.
Right. This is the same old song and dance. I mean, he said in 2016 that he won't believe the votes unless he wins. I mean, that's not a exact quote, but that was the gist of it. Was I won't believe the results of this election unless I win, and then I believe it. It's like, man. It really tears at the heart of what we kind of hold as truth in our country, and it's a real shame. I mean, it really is. And I would do the same thing if Biden or anybody, if fucking Howie was being like, hey man, you got to recount the votes because it's all a fraud. He'd be like, man, that guy's an asshole.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Like I said this last week. When does it become less about politics and more about character? And you're on one hand telling people that they should be frustrated and angry, and you shouldn't trust this process, knowing that people are going to react to your every word, which we've seen. It wouldn't matter which side it was. It would be wrong.
Yeah,
it would be wrong. And people are going to be like, oh, if it was this way, people would be frustrated, or if it was that way, people were going to be frustrated. It's wrong on either side of it. There's no right way to handle this in the way that he's handling it. If Biden did it, I would be saying the same thing. Like, you're an asshole.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be trying to undermine the process that was literally set into place. And, for you to come out and saying all this stuff. First of all, he told his supporters not to do the mail-in ballots, to come to the polls and vote. So that's what they did. But now you're trying to undermine it, saying don't count these votes when it looks like it's going to benefit you. You knew what it was going to be.
But don't count the state, but count this state. It's like let the states hold their voting laws accountable and let them do what they're going to do per state, because every state has different voting laws. You know, some have day of, some have, you know, you have to show up or whatever. It's all whatever, state by state. But I mean, you know, again, it's when we think it's going to be over, it's not going to be over. We got, man, maybe even for another month we're going to be dealing.
No, it's going to be a long process, and the crazy part to me is like the inciting of violence. On one hand, you know, you're complaining about uprisings and people getting frustrated that way, but then in another hand, you literally have people threatening the vote counters at different stations where they're counting the votes. These people are Democrats, Republicans, and independents. It's not like it's a whole bunch of Democrats sitting around counting the votes, you know, being sneaky. They come from different backgrounds.
Yeah,
and you have people at these polling stations with guns, you know, threatening these people. Like it's just very funny that on one hand you can say one thing about a certain people and how they react to something, but then you've got another way that people react. And that's okay.
Right.
It's like two completely different standards. One where you shouldn't even have this happening, and one where you can understand it. You wish it wouldn't happen, but you can at least understand why it's happening. But one is condemned more than the other, and that's been crazy to me too over this last week.
Yeah, for sure. But something a minute ago about character, not politics, and I think this election turned out that way. Because if you look, nothing about the government really changed, except Trump's probably not going to be there anymore.
Yeah. And you're going to have somebody that is
nothing's changing, except Trump's not going to be there.
And I said it last week. I said, you know, Biden isn't a perfect choice either. Like I looked at the screen, I was like, oh, fuck you. When he came out and he was like, you know, Hispanic people or Latino people have more culture than black people. I'm like, why the fuck would you say that? Like, you're an idiot. Like, you are stupid. The only difference to me is one can be more diplomatic and more political about the way that they handle things. And when you're looking at a leader, even if he's not the one making all decisions, you have all these different branches of government that balance the power. You still want somebody that acts like the role that they're in.
Yeah.
And, you know, people voted for Trump because they didn't want a career politician. And, you know, I've been chuckling about this all week. You know, you don't go to a doctor's office and say, I don't want a career doctor to do surgery on me. You want somebody who's qualified to do the position.
Yeah.
You don't just want Joe Blow who works on, you know, car parts and tires, you know, cutting open your leg and putting a rod in. So why would you not want somebody that at least can show a face of being able to handle themselves accordingly, as opposed to somebody who just says what comes to mind and you're literally running the free world, which, you know, covers white people, should cover black people, Hispanic people, all these different races in a melding pot.
Well, I think that's bad. I think the romance of like the idea. Wow, that is so bad.
Yeah, you got a bad echo.
Yeah, how come?
You just like to hear yourself talk.
Apparently.
Thank you for fucking rock star.
Yeah, is there good? All right.
Yeah.
It's just really fucking quiet. Anyway, but I think that's the romance of Donald Trump, and that's what helped him win, was that the idea that he was going to shake things up, and especially in the older generations where the name Trump carried a lot of weight because he did a really good job in building them. Like, he did a really good job in building his brand. You know, so you know, I think that's why people really love him. Still love it because they are still the romance that is still whatever fresh.
And there are some people that are never going to let that go. And that's what also is crazy to me. You've seen all the antics and all the things that he's done. And there was one video circulating on Facebook where you had literally people praying on their hands and knees, chanting and praying for them to stop the ballots. And then they had Trump's interview playing in the background. And I'm like, these people are borderline delusional. And I'm not saying all of them. I mean, if you voted for Trump at this point, like I said, I cannot support you fundamentally because you're voting for somebody who has said and done racist things. So, I mean, I still can't support you, but not everybody, of course, is on the same level when you talk about their support for somebody. But you literally have people that no matter what this man does, no matter what this man says, they will vote for him no matter what. And there's nothing that you can do or say to change their mind. And we talked about that last week when you're talking about growth and having conversations and making things better and trying to understand people. But like I also said last week, you have a group of people that don't care. And when you don't care and you only care to hear how things are one way because it benefits you, you'll never come to a point of understanding and learning and equity and equality where you can have an open conversation and not feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what really killed me was yesterday when Biden came out and he did his interview, and he was talking about being in meetings all day for COVID. Like, I'm trying to get caught up to speed. I'm trying to figure these things out. I'm so sorry for everything that's happening. This is one of the highest days that we've had for the COVID rate in terms of spiking. And he was like, I just want you guys to know that this is what we're up to. Have a nice night and left. And then Trump did his interview at 6:30. And I sat there and I'm like, I just want to see Kittle. Is that your mama?
That's my mom's.
Hey, mama.
She's right, though. I mean, not take a sidestep back to what you were saying. Is that, it's propaganda, and they bought into it deep. I mean, hook, line, and sinker, man. It's like, this guy is all that is good and righteous in the capitalist world, and we should follow him right off a fucking cliff. Which is
what confuses me is they spent the last 4 years complaining about Hillary Clinton, not saying the election she was cheated, saying it was a cheat, she got cheated, it got stolen from her, and now that's the first fucking thing they say when Biden flips a state. Stole it. Obviously, they fucking stole it.
Yeah.
And in some states, Trump won by the same margin that he's arguing. So it's like, okay, well, where were you at arguing these same points when it was happening last year or 4 years ago? And if people would have uprose and had an issue with that, everybody on that side of the party would have flipped their lid. It would have been a field day, But like I said, I think that some of it is like you can discern yourself on certain things that he says, and then you can distance yourself from other things because you feel like it doesn't affect you. And that is a conversation that also creates a barrier between people of color and people of non-color. It happens all the time where, for example, I won't get into specifics, but I had to cut somebody off that voted for Trump again. And I've had so many conversations with this person about doing the right thing, making sure they're why are you doing this? When you see all these signs, gave him facts, and he did it anyway. And I'm like, well, I can't associate myself with you at this point. Because we've had conversations. I've explained to you how hurtful it is on, these different reasons, not like made up stuff, but facts. And, the guy messaged me and he says, don't tell me that we're losing our friendship over fucking politics. It's not about politics. If you're Republican and I'm Democrat, that's one conversation. That I don't have a problem with that. To be honest with you, half the Democratic candidates that come out, I'm not for that either. But you can discern yourself and you can distance yourself from one part and literally make it about something else because the other part doesn't affect you. So no matter what I say, even though I've explained this a million times about how hurtful it is, you still refuse not because essentially because you don't want to see it or you don't care to see it. You still voted for him and you want to make it about what you want to make it about. And I didn't even bother answering. I'm like, at this point, I've talked myself blue in the face. Why am I going to explain to you for a third time why this is hurtful when I've already explained it twice and you're seeing what's going on in the world? Why?
let me ask you this. Uh, as obviously record numbers of voters turned out this year, which is amazing, right? A lot of people of color, and obviously you can't speak for everybody, but I know you and I were speaking the other day about you have some friends who are like, yeah, we're gonna vote for Trump, and you're like, how can you do that? As a black person, how can you vote for Trump?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, what do you think brings these people to this side, to where in these predominantly, you can see the breakdown of the votes in these neighborhoods and these counties, and it's like, man, some of these counties are predominantly black. That there are people of color that live there, and then Trump wins that area, and you're like, man, how is that possible?
Well, what I've heard is he took 25% of the minority vote, and it's up from any time ever before for Republicans.
Well, Mike, why do you think that like people of color or people of the LGBTQ community or anything that basically it's pretty obvious where Trump stands on this? Why do you think these people are voting for him?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of these people are fucking sick and tired of promises being broken by everybody else. So why not the guy that's going to burn it down? It's almost the same argument about destroying the system and building it back up. The people who voted for Trump in the first place, it wasn't to be racist. It was because they didn't like what the country was and wanted to burn the system down. That's why they fucking elected a reality TV star.
Right.
So I don't know, man. I don't know why they're flipping. I don't know what their attraction is to him. For me, what turned me off on Trump in this time around was, healthcare. He punted. There's a lot of different things like that, policy things. I'm like, what is fucking wrong with this person? On top of, why is he even talking? Everything he says sucks. All that shit. So I don't know. Especially, I watched that documentary 13th, and watching that and listening to what you're saying, how can a black person vote for Trump?
Oh, so you did watch it? Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Awesome.
So you go through Nixon and Reagan and the similarities that Trump has with them specifically, and the things he says and the mantras. I don't understand how they really could. But
well, I mean, he basically hijacked Reagan's campaign slogan. I mean, like what word for word? It was "Keep America Great," or it was "Make America Great," and his was "Make America Great Again." Like, I mean, it was like, verbatim. I mean, the guy did a great job, basically, trying to appeal to that era voter.
And I'm first of all, thank you for watching the 13th, because as I said last week, it is an amazing documentary that gives so much insight, and not biased insight, but statistical, factual based insight into why you see the frustrations constantly boil over for people of color, especially on what's going on now. And, black people, I'm not the spokesperson for every black person, but when it's my turn to speak up for, defending or reasoning for why people do things, all we can really do is speculate, and I can give you a speculation. I think that I agree with Mike. A lot of them are tired of career politicians or people that, come into office and don't make any change. But then it's like, okay, well, what changes he made that have supported you? Because most low income or middle income people didn't benefit really from him being the president. So take that off the table. What else is he providing people of color that makes you feel like he's the one that you should vote for through everything he said? Like, I see in the comments that Kat says it doesn't bother you Biden is racist. And then she talks about, I don't know if she said something about Trump, but when do you get to a point where you get sick of the racist antics that constantly play out throughout everything that he's done? He based his campaign on it. When he was asked questions about condemning racism and condemning white supremacists, he could not do it. Why is that okay for you? And for me, I'll never understand that Hispanic people vote for him in droves, because there are a lot of Hispanic and Latino people that live in Florida that voted for him. You got a lot of people that live, I guess Arizona was, heavily Republican until they